Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Into the Wild. Today I am excited to be joined by Yatin Kalki. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Hey, glad to be on this podcast. So my name is Yatin. I'm a wildlife biologist with a specialization in herpetology. I have bachelor's and master's degrees in wildlife, and right now I work in India. Um, I've done a lot of different types of research in the herp world over the last like 10 to 15 years. So I was a research associate for Agumbe Rainforest Research Station for like 2 years, where we did some king cobra radio telemetry, and I've had a few other like short-term research projects, especially in and around Bangalore, focusing on the urban wildlife. And right now, I run a company called Ecofist Wildlife, and we do mostly like herp tourism as well as educational outreach, um, and some amount of research as well.
Awesome. That sounds so cool. Next time I come to India, I will definitely visit.
Yeah, I
Um,
would love to host you.
so because the topic is about herps, could you define perhaps to people who don't know what it means to be a herpetologist or what are herps?
Sure. So the term herp comes from the Latin word to creep, which is kind of weird, but it basically covers reptiles and amphibians, which together aren't really closely related as different taxa or different kingdoms. But since most of the time you find reptiles and amphibians in the same places, herpetologists end up studying both reptiles and amphibians. So this covers under reptiles like snakes, lizards, turtles, crocodilians, and amphibians, frogs, salamanders, Sicilians. Yep.
Out of curiosity, what made you get interested in studying these creepy crawlies?
Well, they're creepy crawlies, and that means that they don't get a lot of love. So I've always had kind of a soft spot for them, but a lot of people don't like them. And I grew up in part of Bangalore, India, where we had a lot of wildlife, and we still had a lot of like native scrub forest around when I was young. And that meant, snakes would often be in and around people's houses. And growing up, I saw a lot of people killing snakes, which again made me sad and angry and stuff. So eventually, when I was in my teens, I decided to start rescuing the snakes. So I would go out looking for snakes myself, and I would catch snakes whenever I could. Obviously, after doing all the appropriate research of figuring out how to identify them and all this. So eventually, I ended up being the snake rescue guy in my neighborhood. So anytime a snake would be in a house or right outside a house, they would call me, and I'd grab the snake and move it to better habitat than inside a house.
Oh, okay, that is really cool. Like, how old were you when you were doing this?
I think I started around the age of like 14 or 15.
Okay, that is insane. You have guts. Um, so since we already started talking about snakes and other animals entering people's homes, I just wanted to ask you, since there's so much conflict that happens with snakes in particular in India, what are your thoughts on the human conflict that we see, and what are some ways that we can educate the public, or what can we do essentially to mitigate this and to help both humans and these awesome animals?
Well, that's a really good question. So, in the entire world, India is the country with the largest amount of human-snake conflict. We lead the world in number of snake bites and number of snake bite deaths. So, I think the most recent stat was something like 80,000 people, 80 to 100,000 people are dying from snake
God,
bite in India every year.
wow.
Yeah.
So
So,
what is like
go
the
ahead.
happens after somebody like is this why the population is very like my family, I'm also from India. Anytime I mention the word snake, the word automatically, ew, get it away from me. they're going to kill you. How do we mitigate that sort of negative connotation that they receive?
Yeah. Well, mitigation of the public perception of snakes,
Yes.
or trying to improve the public perception of snakes is really hard in this country because, I mean, all the stats are kind of against us. So when you stand up for snakes and say like, "Hey, don't kill snakes," people are like, "Yo, so many people are dying from snake bite. Why should I not kill the snake that's in my house, especially if it's a venomous snake?" So it's really hard to, get people on board to conserve these animals. And the reason for the high stats in India are actually due to a multitude of factors. So the reason so many people die from snake bite in India, well, first of all, we have a lot of venomous snakes that also benefit from human development in certain ways. So
Yes.
these snakes are eating rodents,
Mm-hmm.
which humans attract with all of the garbage and other things that we accumulate in like the human dominated areas, urban areas, and things like that. So the cobras and the Russell's vipers are mostly rodent eaters, and those two snakes are also able to survive in semi-urban or even completely urban areas sometimes. Um, and the second factor is that in India we have such a huge human population. Right now we're the world leader in, yeah, I mean snake bite death, but also in human population. We have the most people out
Yeah.
of any country. And the density of humans in just anywhere, any part of India is just like super high with very few exceptions. Um, and on top of that, uh, the medical infrastructure for a snake bite at the moment in the country is pretty poor compared to other countries. Um, so once it's just a multitude of different factors that are all kind of coming together to cause a really bad situation. So if somebody gets bitten by a snake, which is more likely to happen, and it's more likely to be a deadly venomous snake in India. Once they're bitten, it's they don't have many great options in terms of medical infrastructure and treatment. So a lot of the people who get bitten, mostly in rural areas, not even urban areas, so like farmers and people like that who already live in remote areas and are in closer proximity to all these venomous species, they have a harder time finding good treatment. So yeah, it's all these factors that are causing this.
Wow. And you mentioned that you do a lot of ecotourism with herps. I was just wondering how has that helped kind of bridge the gap between all of these issues? Are people becoming slightly more understanding?
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, we do a lot of like beginner friendly or like intro level herpetology workshops, and people with absolutely no experience with snakes, no experience of any kind. They might be terrified of snakes. They come in, and once they get to see a snake for the first time in the wild, it really changes their perspective because a lot of people come in thinking that snakes are out to get you, and
Mhm.
a snake might chase you and bite you or whatever. But when we interact with these animals in a very calm and peaceful setting that's on the snake's terms, you just see a snake sitting in a bush or something like that, just minding its own business, either like sleeping or just cruising around looking for something to eat or whatever, and it's got absolutely no interest in us being there, doesn't want to do anything malicious to us at all. And if at all, the snake is scared of us, which is really the only reaction that we get when we approach snakes. Um, Never aggression, just, fear, I want to escape. Or, if it has nowhere to escape, then it gets defensive and says, yeah, don't get too close to me, I might bite you. So yeah, it's great to see people's perspectives change. And we see this on, a weekly basis, monthly basis, however often we conduct these workshops. And it's a slow process, but you don't change the world in one shot, you change the world one person at a time.
Exactly. I also just
Yeah.
wanted to ask you, based off of your enormous experience, have you ever had any close encounters?
Yeah, too many uh to recall, or like too many to go over on this podcast. But yeah, when I was young, I was really stupid. I used to do a lot of really dumb stuff with snakes, especially when I first started out, the first like, 2 or 3 years that I was doing stuff.
Hmm.
Um, yeah. I used to not catch snakes in the most scientific or safe way. And yeah, just a lot of sketchy, risk-taking behavior that I have since left behind. So that's good.
Yes, that is good. We don't want anybody to get bitten.
Hmm.
You had also mentioned how access to antivenoms is very low in India. Is it just low, and is it like, for example, would it be different if I were in a rural area compared to an urban area? I'm assuming it would be harder to have it would be harder to get antivenoms if I were in a farming or a rural setting than in an urban setting, right?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, realistically, antivenom isn't always accessible or available.
Yes.
As per the law, as per like whatever guidelines and stuff you'll read, antivenom is supposed to be available in all government hospitals and public health care centers
Yes.
in India, even the smallest ones. But it's not always available. And the other thing is that, even if you do have antivenom, your body might have other reactions, like
Mhm.
if you have a bite from a neurotoxic snake, which would shut down your nervous system,
Yes.
you would need a ventilator to keep your lungs pumping,
Mhm.
keep your lungs breathing. And a
Yes.
ventilator is a pretty high tech and involved piece of technology that's not always available at these basic places. So I would say if you get bitten by a snake, go to the biggest private hospital that you can find. They will have antivenom, they'll have all the other infrastructure as well.
That's insane. Um,
Yeah.
and then another thing that also kind of relates to human conflict with herps, I would say, is the effects of climate change. When I
Hmm.
took herpetology as an undergrad at Davis, my professor told us that because these are poikilotherms and they rely on the external environment for temperature regulation, they can't, there's only certain places that they can go. And also I remember learning about how certain species of herps, depending on the temperature, are more likely to lay female eggs or male eggs. And I was wondering if you could talk more about that as well.
Yeah, sure. So with the large scale effects of climate change, I think just landscapes are changing, and any species, not just restricted to herbs, but any species that is highly adapted to some type of environment that has taken, years to evolve. If that environment suddenly changes because of changes in climate, this animal is going to be out of a home, or, it's just
Mhm.
not going to be a suitable fit to the new environment that exists now because of climate change. Um, and we've seen some amount of some examples of climate change and how it's affecting herbs just in the scale of just a couple of years. So, for example, one of the things that's happening with climate change around Bangalore is that the dry season is becoming drier and longer
Yes.
compared to how it used to be.
Hmm.
And there's a lot of herbs that during the dry season, they're especially okay. So let me talk about the habitat around Bangalore, just to set the stage a little bit.
Hmm.
So it's a dry forest with no like big trees, no canopy. It's a lot of like shrubs, grassland, thorny bushes, things like that.
Hmm.
And the snakes that you find in these places, I think the snakes might be able to survive, but the chameleons are the ones that we've seen the most impact on. So even 5 years ago, there's a place on the outskirts of Bangalore where I would do a walk in the night and find 10 chameleons. And then the last 2 years, I've had really severe droughts. And now when I go there, I'm lucky to find even one or two chameleons. And the
Wow.
reason for this is that the dry season, which is supposed to be from around October to May,
Hmm.
um, it's supposed to get a few random rains in the middle, but those have stopped. So it's just dry the entire time.
Hmm.
And the other thing with the dry season is the locals often set fires to these forests to, well, if all the vegetation is dry and they're trying to graze their cattle, the cattle aren't trying to eat dry grass. So every time they burn it, fresh green shoots pop up. So they burn any dry vegetation that they see in the forest, and
Hmm.
then they hope that some green shoots pop up. So since we had such a long drought, there were way more of these fires set by the locals in this scrub forest. And a snake may be able to escape a fire, if it's fast enough or if it's mobile enough. But a chameleon is a slow-moving animal that is very, very clumsy on straight land or grass, and it's climbs slowly on branches of trees or shrubs.
Yes.
So these chameleons are just sitting ducks when these fires happen.
Oh no.
And just, yeah, 2 years of intense drought and lots of fires in this habitat. And we've noticed a significant decline in the chameleon population.
Wow. And then I mean like what about amphibians? Because they rely on water. How are they affected by the
Yeah,
season?
yeah, a lot of the same ways. We're getting less rain. Things are getting hotter and drier, and amphibians that require maybe some type of seasonal pool to breed in, to lay their tadpoles, to lay their eggs and then tadpoles. Those pools are drying up a lot earlier, a lot quicker than they would be in the past. And yeah, we've noticed some declines in things like the bush frog populations, um, and other frog species, especially in places like the Western Ghats or at the margins of the Western Ghats.
And since people have often asked me, "Oh, so who cares if some small frog or snake species goes extinct from an area?" Can you explain
Mhm.
what that actually means on the ecosystem level, and how that actually is a bad thing? We can't just let, small things like go extinct in a particular area, to people who would ask those questions.
Well, I mean, this comes down to the intrinsic value of the species and, why we should care about them. I mean, there are plenty of reasons to care about a species just because it exists and just because it's a cool evolutionary, thing that is
Hmm.
out there. Um, as for like I don't know, the human side of things and where humans benefit or lose out with species going extinct or being around. I think with so many of these species, there's no real impact on anything that would um, affect our day to day,
Okay.
if they did go extinct. But that doesn't mean that there's no effect whatsoever. Obviously, it affects all the other species in the ecosystem.
Hmm.
Um, and each of these species plays a role, and yeah, all of the basic stuff that you would hear in intro environment classes about the ecosystem. But yeah, I don't know. I have a very cynical outlook on most of this because we've seen, I myself have seen these landscapes and these habitats change in my lifetime, and so many of the species that I used to see as a kid no longer exist in the same areas. And it's not really changed how people live their lives in that area at all.
I actually very much have a very similar view. I'm from California, the northern part, and
Mhm.
the temperature over the last 10 years has increased so much. I used to see so much more wildlife. I live in an area with a lot of trails. Occasionally, you
Mhm.
could see rattlesnakes and stuff like that. And now you don't see anything. And
Wow.
the number of lizards that come out in my backyard and do push-ups has d decreased.
Mhm.
And even like hawks and what are they called? Passerines that hunt on snake species in the area have also gone down. So yeah,
Yeah,
it's really sad. Yeah,
it really is. Yeah.
yeah. And then I had also asked you about how what effect does climate change have on sex ratios for herps?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think you asked me that in one of the previous questions and I forgot.
No
But
worries.
yeah, so there's a few different species, mostly crocodilians, some turtles, like mostly sea turtles and stuff,
Yes.
and a few lizards even that have temperature determined sex determination. Um, so I always get this wrong and I always forget, but the one of the sexes, either male or female, is what hatches out of the egg when the egg is at some higher temperature, and the other sex is what hatches out when it's a lower temperature. So I can't remember if it's females at higher temperature or males at higher temperature, but this is what it is. And in the clutch of eggs, obviously not all of the eggs are going to be at the same temperature. So maybe the ones that are lower down, most of these eggs are laid underground or like in nest cavities or things like that. Um, so the eggs that are deeper in the ground are probably cooler than the ones that are closer to the surface. So you would get a mix of different sexes out of a single clutch. But as climate change is causing temperatures to rise and all this other stuff, yeah, we're getting more of a single sex coming out of a clutch of eggs. And obviously, yeah, a skewed sex ratios in wild populations is no good. Cause a lot of other impacts on the populations as well.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of what happened with the rhino, right? We had more females than males, and that's why it went extinct. So I feel like it would be a very similar situation. There won't be enough mates for,
Okay.
yeah, for like, for example, a female to find a male. It would be much harder. Um,
Yeah.
yeah. So you had also mentioned how you're in India right now in Bangalore, and I wanted to ask you what the species diversity is like around the area in on the Western Ghats. And yeah,
Cool. So, Bangalore, as I said before, is a dry habitat, scrub forest, dry deciduous forest ecosystem. In urban Bangalore, we have about 30 species of snakes, and um, most of the diversity is found at the margins of the city, obviously, where the habitat is a little bit more intact than the suburban or urban areas.
yes.
In the truly urban areas, we find like it's just like 5 or 6 species. And out of that, like out of those 5 or 6 species, 8 out of 10 individuals would be of one species, or maybe less than that. Maybe like 5 out of 10 would be of one species, and then maybe 3 out of 10 would be another species, and then you get maybe like two more species.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, in terms of like their relative abundances. So in urban Bangalore, the cobra is the most common snake. I see them on rescue calls all the time, the spectral cobra, which
Mm-hmm.
is also one of the deadliest snakes in the world in terms
Yes.
of number of human deaths caused. Second most common snake in Bangalore is the Indian rat snake, which is exactly like a cobra except non-venomous. Exactly like a cobra in the sense of the type of habitat that they like. They're a generalist predator that exists in all different types of habitat,
Yes.
and it will eat anything that it can fit in its mouth, just like a cobra, but
Mm-hmm.
feeds mostly on like rats, rodents, like a cobra would. Um, so these two species are sharing the same exact niche pretty much. And then number three is the Russell's viper, which is one of the other deadliest snakes in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, and fourth we have the checkered keelback, which is a common water snake species that has been able to persist in even some of the more polluted water bodies, and you find them in like lakes and stuff in the city. Um, and then those four species are the ones that you can reliably find in the city. And then maybe you find a wolf snake, maybe you find a kukri snake, but all the other like more habitat specific snakes are not going to be found in urban or suburban areas. They're going to be found at the margins of the city where you still have some amount of native vegetation and these granite hills left over. Yeah, so that's Bangalore.
So
Um,
my second question about diversity is what kind of toxins or I guess venom do these species target? You had mentioned some are neurotoxic. What are the other kinds that you can find?
Yeah, so in India we have four snakes that cause the most amount of snake bite, or like almost all of the snake bite deaths in the country. We call them the big four venomous snakes. The speckled cobra and the Russell's viper are number one and two of the big four.
Wow.
And yeah, I think the stats, Russell's viper might actually cause more deaths than the cobra. The stats keep going back and forth on this. And then number three and number four are the common crate and the saw-scaled viper. The
Mm-hmm.
common crate is the deadliest snake, sorry, the most toxic snake in India. So drop for drop, its venom is the most toxic compared to the other venomous snakes.
Mm-hmm.
And the saw-scaled viper is a small viper species that isn't really found around agriculture and human, urban areas like these other three species would be. It's found more at the margins of where people live, and it's a small snake with, again, potent venom. And it causes the least amount of human deaths out of this big four, but it does also cause some deaths. So in the big four, the speckled cobra and the common krait are elapids. So
Mm-hmm.
they're neurotoxic venom snakes. And these elapids also include things like the king cobra and coral snakes from the U.S. and pretty much all of the venomous snakes in Australia. And
Yes.
then in Africa, you have your mambas.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, so all of these are the elapids, and most of them have a neurotoxic venom. And then we have the vipers. So we have the Russell's viper and the saw-scaled viper. And in India, we have a lot of other viper species. Most of them are like smaller pit vipers that aren't deadly, but would still require some amount of medical attention. Like if you got bit, you might have a bad week because you might you might have some intense pain and swelling, and at the very worst, you might lose a finger or something like that. But still, yeah, still not fun to get bitten by those guys. But most of the vipers have hemotoxic venom. Hemotoxic venom targets the blood and cell tissues and basically kills you by like liquefying your cell tissues and then like clotting the blood inside your system. So these are the main two types of venom. And when we say that a snake is hemotoxic or that it's neurotoxic, I only mean that the majority component of its venom profile is hemotoxic or neurotoxic. There's a whole bunch
Oh,
of other, um, go ahead.
no, no, I was just reacting. So that means there's other things that can
Mhm.
also be in the venom.
Yeah, so there's a whole bunch of other things that we don't really talk about too much in like the public discourse about this. There's myotoxins, cardiotoxins. Um, I can't even remember. There's probably like 10 more different types of toxins that all do various different things to your body, which are all pretty scary and gruesome. Um, and yeah, every snake's venom is like some ratios of all of these different, toxin components. Um, so when you do get bit by a snake, it's important to know which snake bit you, and get the appropriate antivenom for that. And luckily in India, we have a polyvalent antivenom that works on all of the big four. So
Oh,
if you know that one of the big four bit you, then it's just one medication for it.
that's good.
Um, yeah,
So
but we also don't have antivenom for so many venomous snakes in India that exist that are also deadly. Um,
yes,
Pretty
yeah,
much any snake in the northeast part of India, which
yes.
we don't have an antivenom for any of those. There's like five other krait species up there that are
Oh
also
my
deadly.
God.
Yeah, a bunch of different cobras, a few other vipers. Yeah, a whole bunch of species that we still have no antivenom for. And, the protocols in place for one of those snake bites is just, it's anyone's best guess. You just kind of like, you get this antivenom or you get no antivenom, whatever, do something random and hope that,
It
you
works.
know, it, it works. Yeah, that's pretty much the protocol at this point.
Does India have a lot of like boas or pythons, constrictor species?
Species wise, not too many. We do have a couple of sand boa species. I think we have three different sand boa species in India. We have the Indian rock python that's in most of peninsular India, and the Burmese python in the northeast, as well as the reticulated python in just one state, actually two states. So it's found in the far northeast in Mizoram,
Mm-hmm.
and it's also found on the Nicobar Islands, which are part of India, but honestly closer to Indonesia. Um, yeah, so we have these boas and pythons. None of them are deadly. I mean, you occasionally hear the odd case of a big python, trying to eat a person or something like that, but it's very unlikely to happen. It happens with like small kids or like really old people. And yeah, like yeah, boas and pythons are cool, mostly harmless.
Yeah, my friend has pets and they're really fun to play with and they're really cute. Um, so what about lizards? Specifically the green lizards you see crawling all over the walls. Every time I go to India and they show up, everybody in my family starts freaking out. And I'm the only one there who like wants to pick it up.
Yeah, I think you're talking about the house geckos, and yeah,
Yes.
they're common. They're a common sight in most of Asia. Um, yeah, I mean they're harmless. A lot of people think that they're venomous or poisonous or
Thank
whatever,
you.
and a lot of people are scared of them.
Yes.
I think what does happen occasionally is that uh, since these lizards are super common and they're usually more common in places that have like insects or flies or things like that, so usually in bathrooms and kitchens.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. Um,
yeah. So go ahead.
no, it's funny because every time they show up in my house, I'm like, why are you trying to like remove them? They're eating all the mosquitoes and insects.
Exactly.
None of them,
Yeah.
nobody understands what I'm talking about. So,
Hmm.
yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
they're
they give us some free pest control. They help
exactly.
us with the mosquito populations, the fly populations. I think what people are most scared of is that they might be poisonous. Like, I don't think anybody wants to touch a gecko to pick it up because most people think they're gross. But every now and then, since these geckos live in kitchens, they accidentally fall into food. And people think that they're like deadly poisonous. So, like, if you eat the same food that had a gecko in it, you're gonna die. But that's not the case, obviously. Like none of the geckos here are poisonous. They're perfectly safe to eat. I don't think you should eat them anyway, but yeah,
Does
we
India
don't
have,
have any. Go ahead.
you go ahead first, finish your thought.
Yeah, I said India doesn't have any dangerous lizards.
Okay.
If you take a bite from like a big monitor lizard, it might get infected, and that's your probably the biggest worry with lizards. We don't have any like truly venomous lizards like the ones that you find in I guess California too, like Arizona, California, New
Yep.
Mexico, the Gila monster and the
Yeah.
beaded lizard that's in Mexico. Um, yeah, all of our lizards are pretty tame, pretty harmless, pretty friendly.
And then I don't know if I just wanted to ask what your thoughts were on the one species of crocodile, native crocodile we have, the gharial. What are your thoughts on the conservation status and yeah.
Yeah, honestly, I don't know a whole lot about it, but I do have a lot of friends who work on the gharial, research projects where they're monitoring the populations and they
Yeah.
have radio transmitters in some of them, and they're
Mhm.
tracking their behavior and their population size and doing surveys and all this other stuff. As my understanding is that they're restricted to a very small part of the Chambal River, which is in North India. And I really don't know about their population status, how it's been changing over the last few years, but I can only assume that all the conservation efforts that have gone into the Gharial within the last, like, I don't know, 20 or 30 years have improved the situation. Yeah, it's a very cool looking crocodilian. It eats only fish,
Yeah.
unlike any other crocodilian. Maybe Tomistomas also are like that. Um, but yeah, they never attack people. They've got a really goofy face with this like really thin and long snout with like a big knob on the end for males.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So did you have any other thoughts or things you wish you would like people to know more about these awesome species?
Yeah, I mean, snakes aren't as scary as you think they are. You can go out and try to look for them, and I'm sure your interactions with the snake will not be scary at all. Other than that, uh, I don't know, maybe some tips on things that people can do to avoid snake bite, which I
Yeah,
guess we didn't cover in this conversation.
we probably should
Um,
cover that.
yeah. I mean, in general, just reduce the amount of rodents around your house and you'll reduce the number of snakes that are going to be visiting around your house. There's absolutely no spray or chemical or any other type of deterrent that you can, quick, easy fix to keep snakes away from where you live. You have to eliminate the source of why the snakes want to come to where you are. So keep your surroundings clean and to avoid snake bite, basic common sense stuff. So like don't mess with snakes. Most of the people, at least maybe not in India, but in urban areas, most of the people getting bit in urban areas are people messing with snakes. So if you don't know how to handle snakes, if you're not a professional, don't attempt to catch or kill a snake even because you're getting close enough to get bitten. Um, and a lot of the bites are accidental in India, especially in the rural areas. And a lot of this happens because um, there's a lot more snakes moving around, and people are kind of get complicit in not getting bitten by snakes, going about their daily activity, not being bitten by snakes 99 out of 100 times. And then it's that 100th time. And it's usually a situation where they're walking around at night barefoot without a flashlight and they step on a snake that like a Russell's viper or crate or something like that and they get bitten on their foot. Yeah. So just basic common sense things like if you're going to be walking around at night, especially in areas that you know have snakes, wear boots or shoes and use a flashlight or torch or even, I mean, all of our cell phones at this point have a little flashlight on it, so you can just use that. It's fine. And yeah, once you're bitten by a snake, another reason a lot of people die in India is because they do not get the right medical treatment in time. They waste a lot of time with these traditional village doctors who put some like random herbs and stuff on a snake bite. And honestly, like most of the people going to these village doctors for snake bite are getting bitten by non-venomous and non-deadly snakes in the first place. So there's this whole like thing of, oh yeah, this doctor has cured, 500 people in the last 2 years. And, most of those bites would have been from like checker keelbacks or something, which wouldn't have been deadly in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. Yeah, don't waste time doing any of that. Number one priority is get to a hospital if you've been bit by a venomous snake. Get to a hospital that you know has antivenom and a ventilator. That is the number one priority. The rest of it with like tying the tourniquet and trying to suck out the venom and all of that. Do not waste your time with any of that stuff. At the very least, I mean, at the very most, immobilize the limb if it's going to be moving around a lot. Keep your heart rate low and don't waste any time. Just get to the hospital, let them get antivenom into your system as soon as possible, and that's the best way that you're going to be saved.
Thank you. That was very helpful.
Yep.
That's also helpful to me because I live in an area with a lot of rattlesnakes. Um,
Hmm.
and yeah. So thank you so much again for coming on this episode. I actually learned a lot and it was a lot of fun talking to you.
Yeah, it's been fun. Thank you for hosting me. And yeah.
Thank you. Yes. I'm going to stop.